Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical here on the program. It is a wonderful Tuesday. Hope everybody has had a great day. Kind of cold outside. It's gotten cold. I don't like it. I heard there may be some snow in the forecast. Is that true? I'm not here for that. I see that in Louisville it's snowing. In Cincinnati it's snowing. I'm not here for that, but it is what it is. In fact, I may be on my way to Lexington tomorrow. We shall see. I don't know if I'm actually going to do that or not. Congratulations, by the way. I said at the end of the show yesterday, I think Kentucky's going to hire Will Stein to be the quarterback. He used to play quarterback at Louisville, to be the head coach at the University of Kentucky. And yesterday they did. And I want to congratulate him. And I want to congratulate Mitch Barnhart. And I want to congratulate the University of Kentucky. And I want to congratulate their fans. And I want to congratulate his wife, Darby. And I'll just tell a quick little story. I mean, I remember it was, I want to say I can remember that it was a Tuesday, but it was a Tuesday. I think it was either a Monday or a Tuesday. It was during the winter, 2012. And I remember I went to the lacrosse house at 2nd and Hill. I spent a lot of time at the lacrosse house when I was in college. And I remember Darby Dudley, who was new to the lacrosse team, and Will Stein, the backup quarterback. And I was buddies with Will. We had the same major. We overlapped a lot. And those two were getting very cozy on the couch together. And I was like, what is going on here? Very interesting. Now they're married. They have 2 kids. And now he's the head coach at the University of Kentucky. And I can't believe I'm going to say this. On U of K, I'm rooting for them when they're not playing Louisville. Or like if Kentucky has a shot at the playoffs on the line and Louisville is 6-5, I mean, you see what I'm saying? So congratulations to him. So I just want to get that out of the way. We'll actually touch on the hiring here in a second as we get to all of our stuff, but I wanted to start off with that. Okay, let's start where we usually start on this program. Cam Ward. The Cam Ward experience hit another low note on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Cam Ward debate has started up once again. It was nice to have a week after the Seattle game where Cam Ward looked and played like a real NFL quarterback, that we didn't have this discourse of does Cam stink, does Cam not stink? But as is the case with most things in life, that in and of itself was fleeting. Cam went back on Sunday against Jacksonville to being the same old Cam that he has been for most of this season. According to Pro Football Focus, Cam Ward's PFF grade on Sunday, 44.7. That's out of 100, by the way. That 44.7 is his 3rd worst performance of the year. His passing grade, 45.3. F. Cam Ward had 0 big-time throws on Sunday. And by the way, if you put a ball in somebody's hands and they drop it, Pro Football Focus calls that a big-time throw. He had 0 big-time throws on Sunday and 3 turnover-worthy plays. It was, again, his 3rd worst performance of the year. His 3rd worst passing grade of the year, according to PFF. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, yeah, the number 1 pick went to the worst team in the league, and the number 1 pick struggled, and this is not something new. This happens all the time, and this is absolutely not going to be so. The depths which with Cam is struggling, that is new. Because the facts are right now, he's worse than Will Levis. He is worse than Will Levis was as a rookie. Levis had a higher grade. According to Pro Football Focus, Levis's grade as a rookie, 63.7, Cam, 56.7. Levis had a higher passing grade, 61.6 to Cam Ward's 55.1. Levis had more big-time throws. And remember, Levis did not play all of that season. Levis had more big-time throws at 16. Cam has 13 right now. And the big-time throw percentage, Levis, 5.9 as a rookie. Cam, 2.9 as a rookie. And Levis had less turnover-worthy plays, 14 to Cam's 15. So the reality is, by every objective measure, Cam stinks. And Cam really stunk on Sunday. And it's not just Cam stinks, it's Cam stinks. Well, Cam stinks for a rookie. Yes, and Shedeur Sanders had a higher quarterback rating yesterday or on Sunday. Shedeur Sanders had a higher quarterback rating on Sunday in a game in which the Cleveland Browns scored 8 points than Cam has had the entire season. Think about that. Again, I watched Jackson Dart play last night. I didn't walk away from it and think Jackson Dart sucks. I did walk away from it and think Jackson Dart is stupid. And I do see a lot of Will Levis in Jackson Dart's game. I think he's kind of like a little Joe Namath with the New York lore and a little Will Levis with the craziness and, kind of the meatheadedness and everything else. But again, I didn't walk away from the game last night and think, man, Jackson Dart sucks. He can't throw the ball. He can't. When it comes to Cam, just calling a spade, he's terrible. Just absolutely terrible. By the way, it should be noted, Shedeur Sanders had a higher grade on Sunday than Cam Ward did. And Shedeur Sanders played the San Francisco 49ers and was drafted in the 5th round. So once you come to the realization that by every possible metric, Cam Ward sucks right now. Once you do that, then you have two choices. Right now, there are some people that are still in denial, that won't admit it, that can't get to it. I'm looking at the YouTube chat right now, and the YouTube chat has all these people saying, hey, Cam's fine. You people don't know what you're talking about. Cam's fine. This team stinks. It takes time. Cam's not very good. Cam, you'll see. You don't understand. So once you get over the Cam denialism and admit that Cam right now stinks, there are two choices when assessing the data. You can discuss it if you want to be honest and want to say, maybe we've completely and totally blown the first overall pick. That's the discussion. It's not a fun discussion to have on December, less than a year after the guy was picked, when his miniseries is dropping. It is not a discussion that is fun to have of, did your team just waste the number 1 pick, turn down the franchise resetting trade with the Giants, and ended up with a lemon? Or you can do what a lot of other people do, which is blame the organization and then expect the same organization to get every move right this offseason, and then that will make you feel better about yourself. So if you blame the organization and you say, this is the worst team and there is no way any quarterback could play any better than Cam Ward has played with this team, but next year you will see. You're now counting on the same numbnuts that put this team together, that decided to give Brian Callahan another year, that decided to promote Chad Brinker, that you're now putting your faith in those people to get every single other decision right this upcoming season. Is that very logical, Mr. Spock? Captain, it is not. So what are we doing? Because some of you have chosen the latter when it comes to discussing Cam Ward. And instead of just saying, this guy might stink, I mean, there may be a real chance that this guy's no good, it's turned into, this organization's awful, and Cam has shown it time and time again, and Cam has proven, old buddy Tic Tac Titan, he says it's the coach's fault, putting out there, quote, I have 3 bad throws and 3 missed guys for Cam in this game. Only one throw that really impressed me, though. Definitely not his best game, but it wasn't some disgrace to football either. Jacksonville match zone was so good, the Titans offensively poorly coached. And I'm thinking, it wasn't a disgrace to football because Pro Football Focus gave it a grade of 44.7. Again, he missed it. He had 3 turnover-worthy plays. He didn't have a single big-time throw. And again, it was Jacksonville. It wasn't the 85 Bears. It wasn't even this year's Texans. It wasn't Ray Lewis and the Ravens. It was Jacksonville. A rather pedestrian football team. But again, that's what happens when you get into excuse making. But I then have to wonder, is that what the people that actually know how the NFL works, is that what they think? Again, the fan logic, the Boboism, the boo-hoo crew, it's all, Cam is a victim of this horrible organization, but Cam is so good, and Cam is so tough, and Cam is so strong, and Cam is so, that Cam will overcome all of it next year. He can't overcome any of it this year. He's worse than Will Levis this year. But next year, with the same people calling the shots that put this team together, Cam Ward will turn the corner. But is that what people who actually know how the NFL thinks? Blake Bedingfield at paulkaharski.com was not so kind to Cam in his weekly write-up, saying, quote, rookie quarterback Cam Ward struggled to hold on to the ball, and when he did, he struggled to throw it accurately. Ward made poor decisions all through the game. Ward is not ascending as a player. He is playing like a bottom 10 NFL quarterback and not like the future of the organization. Again, that is the former director of college scouting, Blake Bedingfield at paulkaharski.com, saying Cam Ward right now, hate to say it, looks like he stinks. Again, Tic Tac Titan doesn't want to have that discussion. He doesn't want to believe it. But do you think he knows more about ball than the guy who wanted the Titans draft Derrick Henry? I don't think so. That game was atrocious on Sunday. It is a giant red flag that you use the number 1 overall pick on this guy, and by every metric, he is terrible. And if you don't want to discuss it, that's fine. You can waste another year of your life sitting here this time next year thinking, man, the organization's still failing Cam. They still don't have the right coaches for Cam. They still don't have the right receivers for Cam. They still don't have the... Or we can look at this objectively and we can say, do we need to have a Cam discussion? And do we need to decide whether or not we go forward building a team around Cam, or trying to make this work with Cam, but being ready for plan B? Because I have to ask everybody, every Titan fan out there, are we really sure that Cam Ward is the guy? Are we really sure that the Titans, when they go out to hire a coach this offseason, are we really sure that they should hire a coach for Cam Ward? Are we really sure that Cam Ward has the ability to become a great quarterback? Not an okay quarterback, not a bottom 10 quarterback, but a great quarterback. Chicago thought Caleb Williams had a chance at being a great quarterback. They hired a coach for him in Ben Johnson. Drake May has become a great quarterback in New England with Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel. So are we sure, after what we've seen this year, that Cam Ward has in him what Caleb Williams had in him, what Drake May had in him, that made those teams say, we've got our guy, we now just have to build an infrastructure around the guy? And I'm not. And 12 games into his career, he has a passing grade of 55.1 according to PFF. Will Levis had a higher grade last season, and he ended up on the bench. And if Cam Ward isn't the guy, which again is a discussion that you have to have, aren't you better off figuring that out now? Instead of hiring a coach specifically to work with Cam, instead of bringing in players and a philosophy for Cam, or maybe even unretiring Hall of Fame jersey numbers for Cam. And this is why the Tennessee Titans are a total joke. because they smell their own farts at the end of every season and convince themselves that it's actually perfume. They thought Ran Carthon was so smart that once they got the terrible Mike Vrabel out of there, he'd show everybody how much of a genius he was. They thought Brian Callahan was going to develop from year 1 to year 2 and become a good coach, even though in year 1, he had shown nothing that would indicate that. Remember, they thought they crushed it in training camp after they hired Brian Callahan, and they believed that Cam Ward was something that most objective observers did not, which is a top-of-the-draft, elite, franchise-changing quarterback talent. And by continuing to do the same thing, smelling their farts, blaming one guy for everything, not changing the front office, not bringing in competition for the quarterback to make him earn something for the first time in his NFL career, it'll probably result in the same as everything else. But if you are the Tennessee Titans and you are actually serious about climbing out of this hole that you have made for yourself, now is the time to start. Not after next year, not in 3 years, no. Now is the time to start. That's the first thing. So, again, I know that everybody out there wants to sit there and say, oh, no, Jared, you don't understand. But I think week by week, when Cam keeps performing the way he's performing, I think there are more people that are saying, yeah, this ain't looking very good. So that's the first thing. I want to talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They've been in business since 1990. They are family owned and operated with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be, or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work that is performed, Hiller will make it right. Again, I know this because I use Hiller at my home, and they do a fabulous job. They take great care of my home. Again, I promise you they will do the exact same for you. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's where I go, by the way, to book my appointments with Hiller. I just pull up my phone, Happy Hiller, boom, got it done. Here comes a text message. They're there in a 2-hour window tomorrow. Care is their core value. They believe that when they care about others, everybody wins. That's why they take care of the customer on every job. Proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, where I will be tonight, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Those are my guys. When it comes to the Titans, the second thing, I saw Easton Freeze write about this at A to Z Sports. I guess he's got a rod up his ass. He wants the Titans to fire Mike McCoy as the interim head coach. Seriously? Firing the interim head coach? Now, I don't really get what Mike McCoy's deal is. He gives off substitute teacher vibes. He gives up the, hey, I didn't sign up for this. I'm just here because they asked me to do it. My job's to unlock the door and make sure that nobody dies. He's got that vibe. And then he gets up there at the podium and speaks as if this is the hardest working, most cohesive 1-11 football team that you've ever seen, which I have a hard time believing. But Mike McCoy was never going to fix the Tennessee Titans when he was hired to be the interim head coach for Brian Callahan's team. And firing Mike McCoy with 5 games to go in a lost season accomplishes nothing other than give you, the fans, somebody else to be mad at when the team sucks, and force Amy Adams-Strunk to pay somebody else more money because Mike McCoy got a raise to be interim head coach. You don't accept the job if they don't give you a raise. There's no reason to fire an interim head coach. This team stinks. They've lost every game. They're going to continue to lose pretty much every game. And then after the next 5 defeats, they'll wrap it up and they'll promise everybody they'll do better next year. Well, next year, Mike Borgonzi, you will see, he will have the team ready to go and he will have them ready. Hey, yeah, here we go. There's no point in firing Mike McCoy. And if you did fire Mike McCoy, who on this godforsaken coaching staff that Ran Carthon, by the way, said we're all top picks on the depth chart, who on this godforsaken coaching staff would you actually be the interim head coach who's worth a shit. Bones Fossil, he can do it. Okay, whatever. Like, that would make a difference. That would just allow you to get mad at him over the next 5 weeks as opposed to getting mad at Mike McCoy. So I saw the Easton Freeze thing again. It's like, they need to fire the interim head coach. Brother. Like, this is over. Yeah, I know Mike McCoy doesn't go for it on 4th down. Who gives a shit? You think you would have won the game against Jacksonville if you went for it on 4th down? Give me a break. So that's the second thing. And that takes me to, I think, a larger point, which earlier this morning, I went on SiriusXM College Sports Radio. I did a hit this morning where I was there to talk about Vandy and why Vandy should be in the college football playoff. And it turned into a conversation about Will Stein and then why Vanderbilt belongs in the college football playoff. But I was doing it with Chris Childers and Rick Neuheisel on their show, Full Ride. And you guys know Coach Neuheisel. And we were talking about Will Stein at Kentucky. And Coach Neuheisel was talking about the scheme and how when he's doing the Big Ten games for CBS, he watches the scheme and the way that Will Stein draws things up in Oregon. And he is very impressed by the strategy that Will Stein puts out there on the field. And I said to Neuheisel, I go, I can't tell you about the strategy. 21 personnel, and then, bang R, and they're, trips right, and there's to bunch formation, the defense lines up, and I'm not going to try to do that. I've never tried to do that. I'm not going to start now. I am not Rick Neuheisel. But I said to Rick Neuheisel, the other stuff, leadership, integrity, honor, discipline, hard work, relatability, Will Stein is A+ across the board on all of those. I've known the guy for 15 years. A+. And I asked Rick Neuheisel, I said, when it comes to coaching, how important is the strategy versus the personality? And Coach Neuheisel said this morning, it's 90% when it comes to being head coach. It's 90% about personality. Remember, Mike Vrabel was a terrible defensive coordinator at Houston before he landed the Titans head coaching job. But Vrabel was a good leader. So when it comes to the next coach of the Titans, thinking about what Rick Neuheisel said today, again, 90% of the next coach, 90% of what makes a good head coach, according to Rick Neuheisel, is about the personality aspect of it. The honesty, the integrity, the discipline, the hard work, the relatability, the ability to motivate your players. I have to ask, in this coaching cycle, who's a really good leader? And don't tell me who you think a really good leader is, because you don't know. Is Matt Nagy a good leader? Everybody that I talk to who either covers the Bears or likes the Bears says that he is not. So if he's not a good leader, then take him off the list. Is Joe Brady with the Bills, is he a good leader? He's my age. Probably hard to believe. What makes a good leader as a coach? And I'll tell you what I think makes a good leader. And this is what I think we need to talk about when it comes to the Titans' need for their next head coach. The Titans need somebody who has that 10% of scheme and strategy down and in check. They need that coach. Somebody that knows strategy. No shit. If you don't know when to call timeout, or you don't know the rules like Brian Callahan didn't know the rules, you'll lose everybody. The fan base, the media, the players, the locker room, you'll lose everybody pretty quickly. But the real question I have after watching Cam Ward get up there and disrespect his coach the other day is, who is going to have the balls to put Cam Ward in his place when he pulls a stunt, like second-guessing the coach? Who's going to have the balls to kick Jeffrey Simmons out of practice when he throws a punch? Who's going to have the personality that these players are going to want to win for? Not because they're scared, but their biggest fear being that they will disappoint the coach. Who is the most genuine, thoughtful, caring, but also confident football guy out there? And I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know who's got 10% of the strategy down, can lead the group, hold people accountable, but also is a guy that these players want to play for, that they want to sacrifice for, that they want to show up at 6 a.m. for, that they want to lift extra for, that they want to perform for and win for. Who's that guy? And in a lot of ways, when I was kind of putting that list together of, again, what are the qualities and what really matters for a head coach, for this organization to get themselves out of the mud, I felt like I was kind of talking about Floyd. You guys that remember Floyd was smart and he knew ball inside and out. And you know that. Yeah. Did he miss on some draft picks? Sure. Everybody does. Bill Polian says Gold Jacket Hall of Famers get it right 55% of the time. And that's the Gold Jacket Hall of Fame guys. So yeah, Floyd missed on Andre Woolfolk and Tyrone Calico. But you know he knew ball. And you knew he was genuine. And you knew he loved the game. And you knew he loved the players. And you knew Floyd's persona because he was on the radio. And as a general manager, he was a lot more visible and a lot more vocal than the general managers are today because he would do a weekly hit for an hour on the radio every week. And so you knew that his heart and his head were in the right place with the Tennessee Titans. You know, I remember the day that he got inducted into the Titans Ring of Honor. Now, he had already passed away, and we were up in a suite that the Titans had given to Sally and the family for the game, and somebody told me, they said, some guy was a local guy, you know, kind of big business guy, and he said that word on the street in the highfalutin circles was that Jeff Fisher was running a coup on Floyd Reese. So he picked up the phone and he called Floyd. And he said, I am hearing that there is a coup that may be run by Jeff Fisher to get you out of there. And Floyd thought, really? No. And apparently Floyd was the only person in town that didn't know that. Why? Because his head was on the ball club. Because he was worried about how to get better. Because he was, again, pushing the cart in the right direction. And so I don't have any faith when it comes to Amy and Burke and Kenneth and Barclay and Chad Brinker. I have a little faith in Mike Borgonzi, not a lot. But I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in them to actually find that guy. What I will assume they're going to do is hire somebody that they know. Whether that's Matt Nagy with Borgonzi, whether that's Mike McCarthy with Chad Brinker, whether that's Arthur Smith with ownership, that's what I think they're going to do. But if the guy they hire as the next head coach of the team does not have the ability to connect with the players, does not have the ability to lead the team through the tough times. It's easy to lead the team when you win. But if they hire a guy who's got no personality, but they like the scheme, it's not going to work. You don't have to be a total asshole like Mike Vrabel just to be able to make a point. But you have to be a genuine dude who knows ball and who is willing to get everybody to pull the rope in the same direction with him. And not actually pull the rope like Brian Callahan thought was a good idea when they were playing tug of war this offseason. So that's the second thing. By the way, I want to clarify something I brought up yesterday on the program. Apparently, people on Twitter were very, very mad about this. I said yesterday that I believe the Titans should clean house at the end of the year. And this is just like 2 years ago without the racial discussion. So 2 years ago, Cyber Monday, Titans had lost to Jacksonville on Sunday. It was a train wreck. They stunk. They were embarrassing. They had Andre Dillard at left tackle. It was a nightmare. And I said, if I owned the football team, I would be preparing to fire everybody at the end of the year. And there were not a lot of people who pushed back on that and said, whoa, 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 whoa. You can't fire the great Mike Vrabel. Most of the pushback was, you're racist. You have to give Rand Carthon a second year, Jared. It is racist. Of course you want to fire the black general manager. That's not fair. And I said, no, I'm firing him because I think he's incompetent. That's why I'd fire him. I'd fire him because if I don't fire him, then I have to promote him. He was brought in to work with Vrabel. And if I'm firing Vrabel, I'm firing him too. It's not fair, but the NFL is not fair. Mike Mularkey had 2 winning seasons, won a playoff game, and got fired. It's not fair. But them's the breaks. But instead, it turned into, you can't do that. You've got to give him a fair shake. How'd that work out for you? Rand Carthon drafted J.C. Latham with the 7th overall pick. He sucks. Rand Carthon signed Lloyd Cushenberry to a $50 million guaranteed contract. He sucks. Have you guys noticed that Corey Levin and Daniel Brunskill, when they filled in for Lloyd Cushenberry, are just as good, if not better? Rand Carthon traded a 3rd-round pick and signed L'Jarius Sneed to a $55 million contract. Go ahead. Let Rand cook. Set you back at all? Same thing last year. You guys decided, no. We want to give Brian Callahan, you got to be fair. Got to give Brian Callahan a quarterback he picked. He didn't pick Will Levis, so we got to be fair. We got to do this. So let's give Callahan another year. How's that working out? You might have ruined Cam Ward. Because if Cam Ward was going to make it as an NFL quarterback, he was going to need to be with a coach who could get the best out of him and help develop him and help bring him along. And you've already screwed that part up with Callahan. Was too busy organizing rock, paper, scissors. These people have got to see these things before they happen, not wait until the house is already on fire. Which takes me to Mike Borgonzi. Because I did say yesterday that I would clean house at the end of the year. And that means everybody. Brinker, the coaching staff, Borgonzi. And people said to me, Jared, you can't get rid of Mike Borgonzi. That's not fair. Again, it's the NFL. Life in the NFL is not fair. But I feel like I've seen enough. I feel like I've seen enough when it comes to the Tennessee Titans and what they're doing now. And here's why I feel confident in saying I think I've seen enough. Because the big decision that Mike Borgonzi and this group, whoever has the final say, which we know is technically Brinker, but what this group did this past offseason was not good enough. They went all in on Cam Ward. Cam Ward's not very good. They turned down the trade with the Giants. They weren't interested in Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones or Mac Jones. They weren't interested in any of those guys. They were all in. They were ready to go. Cam Ward, he's our guy. He's Mahomes. Now, do you guys really believe that at this point now that you've seen him play? Well, that was the big decision Borgonzi had to make, supposedly. And he failed. And people say, but Jared, this draft class is very good. Are they? Cam Ward's got a worse PFF grade than Will Levis had as a rookie. Femi Oladejo's hurt, and when he does play, he's not very good. Kevin Winston has the potential as a very explosive box safety. That looks like it might be a nice pick. If you use him correctly, you put him at nickelback like they did the other day, it's not going to work. But you use him correctly, Winston's got a shot. Chimere DK, very good punt returner. And I think he's got potential as a number 2 receiver. I see Justin McCarron's potentially in Chimere DK, which is good in the 4th round. Gunnar Helm, number 2 tight end. Again, solid in the 4th round. I think Alec Manor has the potential to be Nick Westbrook-Akine, a number 4 wide receiver. Nothing more than that, but a number 4 wide receiver. And that's what we're getting our panties lost all over. The guy drafted a box safety in the 3rd round and maybe a number 2 receiver and a backup tight end. So I am of the belief that there's a chance Mike Borgonzi might actually be a good general manager. But I don't know that. What I do know is that he, working with Chad Brinker in lockstep, allegedly, they put together a team that by every single metric is worse than they were last year. And they've done it on the premise that Cam Ward is the next Patrick Mahomes. I don't believe that. And I don't know, if you're being honest with yourself, I don't know how any of you could believe that Cam Ward is the next Mahomes. So they already swung and missed this year. The Titans, again, are at an inflection point because they have to make big decisions. They have to hire a coach. And I just say, get everybody out of here. All these people that have never done this stuff before, get them out of here and bring in somebody who does know what they're doing. What about Chad Brinker's resume makes you think that he knows what he's doing and can run a football team and pick a coach? And let me answer that for you. Nothing. If the Titans were to go out and to hire a real football person, and the truth is, you can go to the NFL. Now, the NFL kind of stuck you with Rand Carthon, but you can go to the NFL and you can say, give me a list of guys that have experience as general managers in the league that can run this football operation, and the NFL will do that for you. Again, I've said many times, Rick Spielman, Thomas Dimitrov, guys that have been general managers and have built teams that have gone to conference championship games. If I was anywhere else but here, I'd tell you J-Rob. And go hire him and say, here's the team. You pick the coach. You decide what we do with Cam. You decide what we do with the first pick. Here's your team, Thomas Dimitrov. Here's your team, Rick Spielman. And while I can't guarantee you that they'd be in the Super Bowl, what I can guarantee you is they'd be better than this fucking team. And I thought last year, if you got rid of Rand Carthon and brought in somebody, you'd have a better team than the team that you had. And unfortunately, you actually have a worse team. So, as I said, in the NFL, nothing is fair. So this idea that it's not fair for Mike Borgonzi not to get a second season, totally valid. But the NFL's not fair. So forget about that. What is best for the Titans? And for me, I believe what is best for the Titans is to completely clean house, get Burke Nihill's ass out of football, and to go get somebody who knows what they're doing and say, Thomas Dimitrov runs the Titans. Rick Spielman runs the Titans. This guy that has done it before, who has shown the capability for success, they run the Tennessee Titans. And if that's not fair to Mike Borgonzi, so be it. But he knew what he was signing up for. When he took this job, he knew the team sucked. He knew he reported to Brinker. He knew that Amy was irrational. You know, at this point, when you sign a contract with the Tennessee Titans, you are not guaranteed tomorrow. But if I owned the team, I'd can everybody, and that includes Borgonzi. And I don't even think Borgonzi is as categorically stupid as the other guys like Carthon and Callahan and Brinker and everybody else. I just think they need to blow it up. Adam in Portland says, Brinker is 10 times dumber than Rand Carthon. I'm not sure I believe that. Again, CBS put out a video where Rand Carthon said, you know, my goal in the 2023 draft was to trade back from 11 and get an extra second-round pick and then take 2 second-round picks and trade back into the first round and get Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm sitting here and thinking to myself, okay, so hold on, wait a minute. So you didn't have a left tackle because Andre Dillard sucked. You didn't have a right tackle because PT sucked. You had one wide receiver, Traylon Burks, who sucked. And your draft plan was to trade back and then trade up and draft a second running back to go with Derrick Henry. That's stupid. But not only that, you obviously didn't have the board down pat because you thought you were going to trade back into the end of the first round and get Jahmyr Gibbs. He went 1 pick after Skoronski. And if you wanted to trade back out of 11, why'd you take a fucking guard with that pick? Also, I guess that no longer proves the point that Rand Carthon had said before, which was, just rolling the dice, playing the board, rolling the dice, playing the board. And, our board matched up really well with the draft picks. Yeah, you wanted to get Jahmyr Gibbs at the end of the first round. He went 12th. Way to go, Rand. So I cannot say that Chad Brinker is 10 times dumber than Rand Carthon. I'll say this. I think Chad Brinker is completely unqualified, and I think Chad Brinker is he is a consultant who goes around handing out pamphlets, and in almost every other business, he doesn't get hired to run the business. He comes in as a consultant, hands out the pamphlets, gets his check, and then goes to the next schlub to do that. Somehow here, Amy hired him. I don't know why, other than the fact that Amy's done some really dumb shit lately. So that I got to chalk it up to that, but I don't think he's dumber than Rand. Rand Carthon was truly incompetent. Speaking of Rand Carthon and what once was, how about the great Mike Vrabel in New England? Monday Night Football, another win for the Patriots, the NFL's first 11-win team. And it is crazy to think about. Mike Vrabel's best Titans team was 12-5. And surely this Patriots team will win more than 12 games. So in his first year at New England, he's probably going to win more games than he ever won in a single season here. And we'll get a good feeling on just how good the Patriots actually are when they play Buffalo and the Ravens in back-to-back weeks. But they've already beaten Buffalo. They've already beaten Tampa Bay. And let's not kid ourselves. I think it's hard to watch what the great Mike Vrabel is doing. Because even though I was in favor of firing Vrabel at the end of 2023, I am seeing a Patriots team that I didn't think was going to be the top team in the NFL. It's hard not to think that maybe the great Mike Vrabel really is that great. Again, I would have fired Vrabel after the 23 season along with Rand Carthon. So maybe I'd feel just as stupid too. But what I can't get over is how Mike Vrabel has been able to, in New England, overcome his single biggest issue as coach of the Titans, his coaching staff. He couldn't hire Shane Bowen to be the defensive coordinator because Shane Bowen was the Giants' defensive coordinator. He couldn't hire Todd Downing or Tim Kelly to be the offensive coordinator because Robert Kraft insisted on Josh McDaniels coaching the quarterback. Now, he did hire Jason Hodeling, but that was as the assistant offensive line coach to a real offensive line coach in Doug Marrone. What happened there? Vrabel promoting buddies from Ohio State and the Texans, every opportunity he had with the Titans, has a real offensive line coach and a real offensive coordinator. That, coupled with the fact that the Patriots have a very easy schedule, Drake May's talent, which was there before Mike Vrabel got there, and Robert Kraft spending money in free agency, is why they're 11-2. So when you look at that, Robert Kraft's insistence on Josh McDaniels being the offensive coordinator, a real offensive line coach in Doug Marrone, something he never had in Tennessee with Keith Carter and Jason Hodeling. Robert Kraft spending in free agency so that Mike Vrabel didn't have to have Andre Dillard starting at left tackle or Daniel Brunskill at right guard or Arden Key as a pass rusher. How much of Vrabel's success in New England is because of Vrabel? And how much of it is because the organization in New England either did things that they wouldn't do here or made sure he didn't do things that he did here? And the answer for me on that is time will tell. Can the Patriots win the Super Bowl this year? Maybe. I don't see it, but I don't think Kansas City's going to make the playoffs. And so if the New England Patriots make the playoffs, they're going to go into a lot of these AFC playoff games, and they'll have the best quarterback because Joe Burrow's not making the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes doesn't look like he's making the playoffs, and Drake May is playing like a top 5 quarterback right now in the NFL. But down the road, if Drake May continues to be what we're looking at right now, can they win the Super Bowl? Absolutely, they can win the Super Bowl. And the great thing about Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator is he has failed so spectacularly twice as a head coach that he's not getting a head coaching job anytime soon. He's not ever going to get a third shot. So you would think Josh McDaniels is going to be the offensive coordinator for the long haul in New England with Drake May, allowing Mike Vrabel to be the coach. But that's where Vrabel's biggest weakness will arise. Can Vrabel allow it to continue to work with McDaniels, or are they going to get into a dick measuring contest? Is he going to cause chaos with his guys versus Robert Kraft's guys? Now that Shane Bowen has been relieved in New York, is Vrabel going to bring him in to be the defensive coordinator? Because I hate to say it, Mike, but Shane Bowen cannot coach. He's had an opportunity to do it. He's not very good. But Vrabel's comfortable with him, and that's what Vrabel likes. Vrabel reminds me in a lot of ways of Bill Parcells. And in the end, Parcells won Super Bowls with the Giants and got to an AFC title game with the Jets and went to a Super Bowl with the Patriots. But Bill Parcells could have had a much better career if Bill Parcells could have stayed out of Bill Parcells' way. That's just a fact. So if Mike Vrabel can look at what he has now, a good team with a great young talented quarterback, a good offensive coordinator that is developing the quarterback, an offensive line coach that's better than any offensive line coach he's ever had, an owner who spent in free agency for him, and he can be happy with it and truly happy, Vrabel's got a shot to win Super Bowls in New England. But if Mike Vrabel starts worrying about who's getting the credit and who's not getting the credit, and my guys and me and Stretch and Cowden and Downing and Hodling and Tony Dews and we did this, Vrabel will have bad luck, because that comes to every coach and every organization. Torn ACLs for the wrong guys, tough schedule one year when you didn't think it was going to be that way. And by that point, he'll wear out his welcome with Robert Kraft. The same way guys with the same personalities, like Parcells, like Belichick, eventually did with Robert Kraft. So I don't know what's going to happen with Vrabel in New England. The way Drake May's playing, they could win Super Bowls. Multiple. But not if Vrabel turns into the my team, my guy, my coaches, my McDaniels, get out of here, the way he did with Dean Pease. He's not going to win anything if he does that. And I just don't know which one he's going to be. But it's absolutely possible. But hey, I didn't think they'd be 11-2. So I'll give credit there where credit's due. One person says the Patriots had 2 starting offensive linemen out last night and still look good. Must be nice. Again, this Patriot team, they're going to win more games. They're going to win 13 games this year. That's more than Vrabel ever won in a season here. And I think a lot of that has to do with Drake May, but also Drake May with Josh McDaniels. Now remember, Matt LaFleur, pretty good offensive coach. He and Vrabel didn't get along. Arthur Smith, pretty good offensive coach. Word on the street is he and Vrabel got along fine, but probably not going to be sending each other Christmas cards this year. We all know that Robert Kraft hired Josh McDaniels, not Mike Vrabel. If it was Vrabel's call, I guarantee Tim Kelly or Todd Downing would be the offensive coordinator. McDaniels is the OC. Can Vrabel make it work? Apparently, Vrabel's been asked about McDaniels and the credit McDaniels deserves, and Vrabel says, well, the whole staff deserves credit. And then Robert Kraft was asked about credit, and Robert Kraft was like, well, I think you got to start with Josh McDaniels and the great. And I'm like, oh, shit. You know what's going to happen with Vrabel on that front. So that's the Vrabel thing. But, hey, congratulations to the Patriots. And we'll see where it goes from there. Just a couple other things, and then we'll get to some of your reaction here today on the program. First of all, congratulations to the University of Kentucky on hiring Will Stein to be their next head coach. I'm just going to say this. You never know if a guy that you don't know is going to be a good coach, because there are so many things about that guy that you don't know. And there are so many things, even if you do know the guy, that doesn't mean he'll be a good coach or not. But when it comes to recruiting, Will Stein knows how to do it. When it comes to relating to players and motivating people, and Will Stein knows how to do it. The only thing Will Stein doesn't have is head coaching experience, and he hasn't spent any time coaching in the SEC. He has coached at Texas before, but that was before Texas was in the SEC. I think he'll be fine. I think he needs to get veteran coaches on his staff. But I think Kentucky could turn it around pretty quickly because I think he's that kind of coach. Let's get to some of your reaction now today on the program about the Titans and Vrabel and everything else. I'll say, you know what? It's all on the table. Joe says, when it comes to the Titans, I would have traded back and drafted Shedeur Sanders in the second round. Call me crazy. Joe, let me say this. Let's save the Shedeur Sanders talk for the rest of the week, because this is going to be a very interesting game on Sunday with Cam versus Shedeur. And you can say what you want about how it's not Cam versus Shedeur. It's the Titans versus the Browns. And one team has Myles Garrett and the other team doesn't, which is very true and very valid. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders. And if Cam Ward plays worse than Shedeur Sanders, when Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick and Shedeur Sanders was taken in the 5th round of the draft, it's going to be hard to defend that. It's going to be really hard for Borgonzi and Brinker and everybody else to defend it if Cam gets outplayed this week by Shedeur. Plus, again, I haven't watched a ton of Shedeur, but doesn't Shedeur kind of suck? Like, doesn't Shedeur kind of suck? Kelsey says, Cam Ward 1 step forward, 4 steps back. Cam Ward has a good game against the Seahawks. Again, not a great game, a good game. Cam Ward has a good game. And after the good game, it's like, I said after the Seahawks game, I said, this is the best game he's played as a rookie. Now let's see what he does next week. And next week, a.k.a. Sunday, was terrible. And so, I mean, it's like, hey, congratulations, Cam. You had one good game, and you followed it up by playing like absolute dog shit. How's it feel? Whitty, who's a big-time Cam boy. Whitty always thinks the Titans and the Predators know what they're doing and they're going to figure it out. I mean, keep waiting, Whitty. He says, sports are not TikTok, guys. We can wait to come to conclusions. I had somebody tell me the other day, they said, you got to give Cam until 10 games next year. Why? Why do I have to give Cam until 10 games next year? Life is finite, folks. I don't want to spend my whole life sitting there and thinking, man, maybe next year the Titans will be good. Let's just keep running it back with the same bullshit and see if it changes. Cam Ward's awful, guys. He's awful. Again, I go back to what Blake Bedingfield said. And you may not like it, but he's the former director of college scouting for the Titans. And he said, when it comes to Cam Ward at paulkaharski.com, he said he's playing like a bottom 10 NFL quarterback and not the future of the organization. I also love the second part. Second-year man and top 10 draft choice J.C. Latham couldn't block for the pass or the run. Never forget the Jared Stillman meltdown on draft night at Twin Peaks out in Madison when the Titans took J.C. Latham. I think I was so upset a couple of tops fell off over there because I was all worked up. Cam, meanwhile, talking about what the coach isn't doing. I still can't get over. Cam went up and second-guessed the coach, and nobody in the organization has the fucking balls to say, hey, Cam, you suck. Maybe you let the guys that we pay to make those decisions, and you can shut the hell up. Tom Brady doesn't criticize the coach's decision to go for it, and Cam Ward thinks he can. Oh, God, it's great. Oh, God, it's great. TD says on Twitter he thinks I'm crazy. Well, he didn't say it, but there was a meme that implies that I'm crazy for saying the Titans should clean house. No, let's give Brinker more resources. Go, Brinker, go. Go, Borgonzi, go. You haven't done anything good, but go, baby, go. You've made the team worse than they were last year. Go, baby, go. And you know what's funny, too, about me wanting to clean house with the Titans? People say, well, you can't fire everybody every year. You're right. I wanted to fire everybody 2 years ago, and you wouldn't let me do it. You said I couldn't fire Rand Carthon 2 years ago. I wanted to fire everybody 2 years ago. I wanted to fire Mike Vrabel. I wanted to fire Tim Kelly. I wanted to fire Shane Bowen. I wanted to fire Rand Carthon. I wanted to fire Chad Brinker. I wanted to fire all of them. Fuck them. Get them out. Gone. Cowden. And I like Cowden. And Cowden likes me. Gone. See ya. Everybody. So I wouldn't have to do that the next year. But they don't do that. They fired Vrabel. They kept Rand. In fact, they promoted Rand. They promoted Brinker. So then the next year, they hired Callahan. This was what they needed. And it was worse. And I said, okay, you got the number 1 pick in the draft. Clearly, Will Levis is not the answer at quarterback. You are really hitting a reset here. Clean house. So I wanted to clean house. I wanted to fire everybody last year. I wanted to fire Mike Borgonzi. I wanted to fire Chad Brinker. I wanted to fire Rand Carthon. I wanted to and hire a guy, and if they wanted to keep Callahan, they could, but they probably wouldn't. They're going to want their own guy. So go ahead and fire everybody. You wouldn't let me do that. So now I'm saying fire everybody. And I'm not allowed to do that because Mike Borgonzi's only been here for 1 year. Yeah, he's been here for 1 year and the team's worse. And the quarterback he drafted number 1 overall, and they unretired Warren Moon's number 4, sucks. And his QBR is 31. And his PFF rating is worse than Will Levis's. So yes, at some point you have to let me fire everybody. I wanted to fire everybody 2 years ago. Couldn't do that. That's racist. I wanted to fire everybody last year. No. Chad Brinker, he knows what he's doing. I want to fire everybody now because we've been putting off firing everybody for so long. That's what you got to do. Well, you know, Borgonzi, he might be a general manager. He might be a good general manager. He might be. He also might have just completely fucked everything up by drafting a quarterback who's not any good with the number 1 overall pick. You ever think of that? Oh, man. It's just crazy. It's crazy. When am I allowed to fire everybody? When? When can I fire everybody and not be racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, whatever? When can I fire everybody? Do they have to be completely 0-17? Because this year they're going to be 1-16. So do they have to be completely 0-17 in order for me to be allowed to fire everybody? And let me ask you this question. How many good players are on the Titans right now? Good. As in an NFL team would look at it and say, that's a good player. I think 1, Simmons. Maybe 2 if you want to count Skoronski. Again, I could give a shit less about a guard. 1 guy who was drafted by a guy 3 GMs ago. Unbelievable. Woo! Will says, welcome to Big Blue Nation, Jared. Don't remind me. I was talking to Lindsay about this last night, and I was like, I'm so happy I told Lindsay, I said, hey, Will got the Kentucky job. And she was like, yes, great. Yay, good for him. Good for Darby. And I was like, I know, but now we have to root for Kentucky. And she was like, so? I'm like, yeah, you're right. Seymour says 85% of the fan base wanted Cam Ward. I don't know exactly what the percentage was on Ward. I do think Ward was the popular pick when it was made. I do think that was the popular decision amongst the fan base because they were being told he was Patrick Mahomes. And everybody wants Patrick Mahomes. Nobody wants Alex Smith. But the truth is, you don't get Patrick Mahomes if you don't have Alex Smith. Who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Best 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the NFL? There's Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Who's 5th? Drake May? Dak Prescott? One guy of that group was picked number 1 overall. Burrow. One guy went to a bad team and elevated that bad team. Burrow. May, you can argue, is in a similar situation. Lamar Jackson was picked 32nd on a team that had a winning record. Josh Allen went to a team that made the playoffs the year before. Patrick Mahomes went to a team that had a first-round bye the year before he got drafted. One person says, if everyone is calling you a racist, it may be true. No. Just one person calling me a racist. DeAndre Hopkins. Which is pretty amazing. Whatever that's worth. So, I'll just say, again, at some point, when do I get to fire everybody? Jared, you can fire everybody the day they prize celebrity birthdays from my cold, dead hands. Yeah, you guys enjoy celebrity birthdays. Oh, it's Farrah Fawcett's sister's birthday today. That's going to do it for us, everybody. Great show today. A lot of energy. Is very, very excited about that. That's going to do it for us here on the program. We are live tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'm actually going to the Predators game tonight. Good luck to the Predators. We'll see if they can, win. And they're like the Titans. When can I fire people? They're like the Titans. They just keep running it back with the same shit and expecting a different result. Who knows? That's it for us. We're out of here. Stillman and Company, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical. Like and subscribe. We'll see everybody live tomorrow at 2 o'clock.